Hello everyone, welcome on an official podcast. Today we have one of the topics you, I guess, would never expect to see on an official podcast. It's about donations. It's about actual donations in e-commerce. And it might first sound a bit weird, like donations, charity, and e-commerce, how they both are connected. But today we have amazing guests who will help us unlock the theme. I'm your host, Oleg Sapishchuk.
And I am your host, Peter Schmalfeldt. Oleg, I know you and I have probably it's been a while since we've done our last podcast, but mainly because we've been trying to research this solution that we're going to be talking about today and the people who are on the show. So can you introduce our guest for us?
Sure. I guess I want to share a bit the story behind that. I was sitting with my colleague Irina week before I met these amazing people. And we were talking about the idea, and then we came to start brainstorming it. And just 5 days later, Peter telling me, "Oh, are you aware about ChangeUp?" And I'm like, "Who are ChangeUp?" And he's like, "Hey, look here, they even have a link cartridge solution over there." And I'm like, "What?" And checking over there and see, oh, it's actual guys who are doing donations in e-commerce. I was so surprised. So what I did, I instantly wrote the email trying to reach out to people. So I'm really glad and want to welcome our guests, Katie, Bob, and Cesar. Katie, hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Great, thank you so much. So
Thanks for having us.
Bob, thank you for actually coming. Bob, do you want slightly introduce yourself? Just a few things about you and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Oleg and Peter, for having us today. My name is Bob Soderstrom. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ChangeUp. We're a fintech donation software company with 12 employees based here in Los Angeles. We are the only Link certified donation cartridge available for Salesforce Commerce Cloud merchants in the United States. And it has been an awesome journey for us to be partnered in the Salesforce community. We launched actually in 2017 as a mobile app. Our name ChangeUp was because we built technology that allowed people to link a card and round up their spare change and send it to any charity in the United States, 1.5 million 501c3s. But when the pandemic started, we had a lot of merchants call us and say, hey, we want to activate these features on our e-commerce site. How can we do that? And so we developed the first cartridge for Commerce Cloud at that time. And we now have about 40 Salesforce merchants, big and small, using our cartridge to activate micro donations to all kinds of causes around the world. Oleg, when you called me about the refugee crisis unfolding in and outside of Ukraine, I was really excited to get that phone call and to be invited onto this show and talk a bit about how our technology could help as a solution.
Thank you so much. And when you gave the overview about ChangeUp, I guess the logical questions of our audience, if I would be a person who listened to our podcast right now, I would be just asking, okay, how actually donations are connected to the e-commerce? Is there any connection between both of them? Katie, maybe you can help us answering this question.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to dig into that a little bit. And by the way, I'm head of partnerships for ChangeUp. I work with our merchants on Salesforce Commerce Cloud and also some of the large charity partners that we work directly with to support. And donations for e-commerce can appear in a couple different ways. Our solution in particular is really flexible. So I think what people are probably most familiar with is what we call donate at checkout. So this is when a customer has gone through, they've selected a number of items, they're going through the checkout process, and they see a module inviting them to either round up their purchase to the nearest dollar or give a dollar. Merchant might choose to match customer donations there at checkout. So it's pretty well established within the payment checkout flow. We also have the ability for merchants to activate donations elsewhere within the customer experience, either on the product detail page or in the cart before the customer checks out. We've got some tips and tricks that help merchants increase conversion rates if they publish donations prior to checkout. But I think the primary use case that folks are probably most familiar with is that checkout module.
Katie, I've got a question for you. What would you say is a motivation for people to use your service? I guess was part of the buying process. Probably customers, I guess, would be one, and then also maybe the businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. And maybe I'll actually flip it and I'll start with the businesses. We've seen, especially over the course of the past 2 years, just how important it's been to customers that the companies and the businesses that they support are aligned with their values. So some stats that we like to share: 84% of customers say it's important to them that a company supports charitable causes in general. They want to know that the brands that they're doing business with are doing good in the world. 65% of customers say it's a company's responsibility to give back. So for the business, they might be doing all kinds of great work behind the scenes, but their customers don't know about it. So putting donations front and center on their e-commerce site lets their most loyal customers know that they're doing good in the world. On the customer side, we see that it really helps solidify that allegiance between the customer and the brand. Customers are more likely to come back many times, increases the lifetime value of that customer for the brand. And I think, really just helps overall increase. We see increases in conversion rates, average order value, and like I said, lifetime value when the customer and the brand are sort of on the same page about what they support. They're kind of in it together in supporting causes that they care about.
Okay, I was shopping this weekend with my wife and mom, who actually arrived from Ukraine. And we went to the shopping mall, and we have a grocery shop over there. It's a big chain without names, I guess, because maybe some people will think I'm promoting them here in Sydney anyway. And they have those POS self-service, right? So we bought some stuff, some food. We came to it. We were finishing our order, so I had to pay. And then before, when I click pay now button, I actually got a pop-up, and it was asking me, hey, do you want to round up for the food of banks? Where there was it's like round up, like charity feature over there. And this was 36 cents, I guess. And I was like, yeah, of course I want to donate. So I click yes.
Yeah.
And then, it started to feel that I want to more and more come to this particular grocery business. Even in our mall, we have 3 or 4 of them, right? But it's kind of made me feel valuable, that I also can do the impact by doing this very small donation. So with that, I actually have a question. Is there any then social expectations for the businesses that in such tough times, do we expect from them to bring donations and charity into the business more to connect them? Would it have any impact for them?
I think it absolutely is. And you're right in terms of that feeling that the customer gets when they participate in some way. Bob calls donations a like button for commerce, especially when you think about a roundup. It's such an easy thing to do. It's, probably less than $1, maybe less than 50 cents, but it makes you feel good about the purchase. And in turn, you're more likely to feel good about the brand. So again, when we started developing our solution in early 2020, I spoke to a lot of brands who were doing great things behind the scenes, but their customers didn't know about them. So this is a way for them to put it front and center for their customers, to make the customer feel good about shopping with the brand. And often if they feel good, they're likely to buy more. We don't know why that is, but attaching micro donations to a cart and to a product tends to give customers that little extra nudge to, buy the item that they're thinking about or add more to their cart. So I think it's a win-win both for the cause and the business to get the customer involved in that way.
So, Bob, I've got a question for you. I'm curious, as a business owner, that you've actually originally probably had this idea and then thought of, we need to develop this and get this out. And then you probably had some original use cases, and then that started that business journey, and then new ones came about as you obviously progressed in it. Can you talk about some of those use cases and specifically maybe how that related to the e-commerce space?
Sure. Yeah, we have some really exciting partners. And by the way, I just want to remind everyone that our lead engineer, Cesar, will be joining to answer a couple of questions shortly to talk about the technical specifications of the cartridge installation. But we've got awesome partners. For example, Jessica Alba's company, The Honest Company, which sells baby goods and lifestyle products here in Los Angeles, has deployed ChangeUp. They have a partnership with a charity called Baby to Baby. They move supplies to low-income families that need baby supplies. And they get a huge opt-in rate for that because their customer base is mostly moms who feel an affinity with that particular cause, and they love the Honest Company and Jessica Alba for assisting baby to baby. So there's a strong affiliation there. Honest Company's also done something really cool. They've allowed people to select their own charity after checkout. And we get a lot of people that select all kinds of different charities, some of them local, using our software. That's pretty interesting because what Katie said, when you treat donate at checkout as the like button for commerce, there's an altruistic moment where people feel good about the purchase they're making. So that's the first thing we're trying to achieve. The second thing is there's also a data point that you collect on those customers if you want to, because you know what causes they're interested in. And there's an ability for you to be able to market to those customers later, depending on whether they're giving to animal rights or climate or LGBT rights or something else. And so there's a way to round out the user profile of your customers with using this technology as well. PopSockets is another partner of ours. Awesome company doing a ton of stuff with climate. It turns out that a lot of their customers are teenagers. Their demographic skews younger. When we activated a campaign to stop the AAPI hate movement last April, there was a huge opt-in rate for the Malala Fund, which obviously was founded by a teenage girl in Afghanistan, and we achieved 29,000 micro donations in a single month for the Malala Fund from PopSockets, 47 cents at a time. So we moved almost $15,000 in cash to the Malala Fund in 30 days from 29,000 micro donations, and those are all customers. Our database collects the 29,000 customers who actually decided to make that donation, and PopSockets, of course, now has that in their database as well. Super useful because they didn't actually know that about their customers. They were skewing most of their offerings more towards climate. We're talking with a large sneaker company right now that is very interested in LGBT rights. And so there's some interesting stuff there. And then also the crisis in the Ukraine. We've got a lot of merchants that are activating. We've identified, Katie, 25 NGOs that are working with the refugee crisis in Poland and Hungary and other countries as well.
Thank you, Bob. That sounds really incredible. I have a question. Then, for those businesses, is there an impact if they enable donation features? So, for example, if they would implement roundup or matching, how they could benefit from it?
Yeah, so for the business, there's two things, of course. Businesses want to increase sales. And so we've worked closely with our partners on features that would help solve abandoned carts and also increase sales. We have the Donate at Checkout feature. We're also launching something called Donate at Cart, which is activating a pledge, a micro donation pledge by the retailer on the product page, which inspires people to move to purchase more fluidly on the product page, because that's something they've asked us to solve. So that's the business impact. The social impact is obviously the marketing teams. We've seen some marketing teams really run with the social impact they're doing in the world. The last 2 years has been incredible, guys. We started with COVID, of course, and so there was a lot of pandemic-related relief early in the pandemic that we activated. Then there was the racial justice movement in the summer of 2020, AAPI hate movement. The Ukraine crisis is getting a ton of attention now, and the world is in a place where the brands really want to align with their customers to do good. And it's an honor to have the software that allows them to do that.
All right, Katie, my next question is going to be for you, and more specifically about the link cartridge that you guys had developed, which you had talked about earlier. And then let's see, the focus for Salesforce Commerce Cloud that you guys had done, and the kind of features that the platform provides for businesses.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of it. It's a really robust offering. I think Bob mentioned we're the only solution certified by Salesforce Commerce Cloud for donations in the US. We can allow merchants to activate donations at checkout. They can do roundups, flat dollar donations. invite customers to donate a percentage of the sale. They can turn on matching. So we saw a number of merchants matching donations over the holidays and right now for Ukraine. They can activate donations, like Bob was saying, on the product page, which we see as a tool to help increase sales. We give them access to full reporting, so they're able to see how a given campaign is doing, compare, contrast over time. They can see the charities that have been featured and how customers are gravitating toward one charity or another to understand what's resonating with their customers, especially if they choose to let the customers select their own charity. Our full platform, this is the part that most people find a little bit boring. We find really interesting, but it's fully tax compliant. And that's really the piece that's so important for most of the businesses that we work with, is there's a huge amount of regulation, as you might expect, around moving money from a person to a charity. It's not something that a business wants to get into themselves typically. And we handle all of that back end transparency and compliance. We can offer tax receipts for any donation. If the merchant chooses to match donations, of course, that's all tax deductible. And we also, as part of our service, can connect to a database of over 1.5 million 501c3s here in the US. We've got charity lists around the world, but especially here in the US, the list is huge. Everything from large national organizations to small charities, places of worship, park projects, or schools. So it's a really, I would say, fleshed out offering. We have a dashboard that we've built in Salesforce Business Manager for the e-commerce teams to manage their settings. They don't have to come to us if they want to make changes. So it's a pretty great solution for the businesses.
Sounds so amazing. I mean, I heard a lot of features, and I honestly want to like, let's say I'm a developer, I'm listening to this podcast. I could be architect, I could be just a business, right? Maybe I'm head of engineering, or maybe I'm someone on the business side who drive the strategy and listen to this podcast, and I actually want to try the solution. So what steps on high level are required then to install ChangeUp on, let's say, Commerce Cloud Sandbox and test it out? I guess, Bob, Katie, we can get Cesar answering this question. So Cesar, like, how hard, or like what actual the steps are to get this up and running on the sandbox?
Hello everyone. Well, the installation for this cartridge is really simple. We are following the same process like others integration provided by Salesforce. You have to download the cartridge, replacing your business cartridge pad in your storefront cartridge pad, and also import the metadata, the products, the prices, the job. And also we provide the one test key and a production key, so you are able to test in for production level, and also do some tests in a test sandbox.
So Cesar, I had a question for you. So for donations as a developer for Salesforce, how would that actually work as far as like what is technically a donation? Because that's kind of a new concept. And so would that, when it's being applied to the basket, is that like for a product or promotion or something else? Like how does that actually work?
Yeah, well, the donation is applied as an extra product, so it's to say in the product line item. At the beginning is applied to basket, but when you finish the purchase, the data is moved to order level. So at the end, the amount, the charity ID, all is safe in order level.
Interesting. So when you say it's a product item, so it's not like a promotion, other stuff. It's kind of an item in the basket, and then which moves to the order, right? Like a I mean, it's not a physical. It's kind of digital product,
yeah.
Right? In the basket. Nice. And when we talk about Roundup, right? If I have a product, the price is always dynamic. Does it mean you guys somehow dynamically override always the price, like assign the price for this kind of product?
Yeah, it's dynamic. It depends of your price book and your inventory. Yeah.
Interesting. It should be, I mean, it had to be difficult to, maybe not difficult is the wrong word. It had to be a lot of work to analyze all the places where you have to calculate, because there's so much impact. You can have a promotions, you can have vouchers, you can have multi-shipments, and you have to have different books. Customer can go back from the basket and add the new card, or maybe, oh, I don't want to ship to Alabama. I'm actually will be in other state tomorrow, right? I want to like change the address, and then all the stuff, all the taxes actually recalculated. So was it difficult to cover all these cases? Like how you guys approach developing of this feature?
I can speak a little bit, Oleg, to the development of the features as well. One of the things that we looked at when we launched our MVP is, where do you place the donation? Where do people want the invitation to do it? Where do they choose the charity? There's a lot of product development that went into something that feels really simple. And so we created options in this really beautiful dashboard our lead designer built. And by the way, we're going to share some assets with you guys that hopefully you can share with the community afterwards to see the software in action and the reports and everything else. But in the dashboard, the merchants can actually drive the show pretty easily once the cartridge is installed. So they can select if they want the donation featured at checkout. Do they want it on the product page? Do they want it to be supersized percentage? Do they want to show charity logos or not show charity logos? They can conceal them. Do they want to invite people to select a charity after checkout? Some merchants we found would like to present 3 different charities after checkout that the person selects, and then the donation is shipped. So all of that took, a fair amount of development, just getting in the marketplace in the first few months of the pandemic in the spring of 2020 and seeing what the customers actually like to do. What we learned is customers love to see a single charity at checkout, and they're offered, the invitation to make a donation right there. We were offering sometimes 3 or 5 charities at checkout, for example, which we can still offer, but that got confusing for the customers, and so we learned as we went.
Katie, I'm curious how the actual micropayments work. Like, does that money go directly to the donation, like fund directly, or is there a process? Like, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, it's a great question. There is a process. It feels very simple from the customer standpoint, but there's a few tricks behind the scenes. So we ChangeUp know that merchants, by and large, don't want a third party in the middle of their checkout flow. So the merchant captures the full payment themselves. The donation is a product line item. So if the rounded up total is $50, the merchant captures that full $50. The Salesforce cartridge reports to the ChangeUp API automatically every time a donation is made. And at the end of each month, I do a reconciliation process on our side, and I send essentially an invoice. We call it a donation report to the merchant. Both sides agree. We've collected, let's say $10,000 in micro donations this month. They ship the $10,000 to ChangeUp, and we work with a donor-advised fund to distribute those donations to the intended charities. And of course, transparency and compliance throughout the process. And we're able to track, where every single donation down to a penny goes.
So, Bob, I guess follow-up question, kind of related to this. How are there any brand success stories that have implemented this? It sounds like this is a great thing that a brand can incorporate, but it could also help a brand out. Have you any good stories for that?
Sure. I mean, one thing we're not talking about in this podcast is we license the ChangeUp donation software to MasterCard. So the MasterCard Donate platform is powered by ChangeUp. The MasterCard Donate mobile app, I encourage you to go take a look at. It's outside of the Salesforce universe, but that's a big client for us. And I bring it up simply because the compliance and regulatory requirements from MasterCard as a partner were as deep as they get. And I'm proud of our engineering to say that we passed that test, as well as the link certification as well. And they're doing, MasterCard's a great company. They're doing a ton of cool stuff with our software. On the merchant side, we're here to help increase sales, to boost the brand ID, to remind customers of why they shop with that brand and why they want that allegiance with that brand and how they're doing good in the world. And to also perhaps round out the data profile on the customers as well. I would say the most exciting customers we have, like I had mentioned earlier, the Honest Company's doing cool stuff. TaylorMade Golf has done some unique campaigns. Alicia Keys Soul Care is a partner. Elf Cosmetics does a ton of great stuff. They activate a different charity every single month, which has been really fun for us to work with. Kind Snacks does a lot of stuff in the hunger space. They pivoted entirely now to the Ukraine refugee crisis. We're working with a lot of the VF Corp companies now, including Vans and the North Face, who will be onboarding hopefully soon. And there's a lot more. There's a lot of cool, lots and lots of really cool merchants on Salesforce Commerce Cloud who we'd love to connect with and talk about integrations with.
Having said that, Bob, I feel we covered so much today in terms of the donations, how they connected to the e-commerce, how actual use cases are, how the merchants can apply the matching, the rounded up, all the features, that if merchants, like the businesses, I usually call them businesses are on Commerce Cloud, they have today Link Cartridge, they have ChangeUp as technology that they can partner with to enable roundup or even like in general donations for the e-commerce, right? It's not only about do good stuff, but it's also about the business themselves. So there is a win-win, which I really call a win-win solution. And with that, in the end of our podcast, we usually have a message to the community where we give our guests time to share what they want to just say to everyone who listened to us. So it's time for message to the community. And Bob, do you want to say anything to whoever listened to us?
Yeah, first of all, Peter and Oleg, thanks a ton for having us. We're fans of the podcast. We're huge fans of Salesforce, of course. We're believers in the technology. Anyone who's interested, who's listening, changeupforcharity.com. You can book an appointment with us. We typically, the easy phone calls for us, to be honest, are with the engineers. We love talking to the developers about how to install the technology. The conversations that really get things moving, I usually talk with the chief marketing officer at a company, sometimes the CEO. Usually legal has to get involved for a brief bit. That's not technical and not that difficult. And then we get on the roadmap. For something like the crisis in the Ukraine, we can move quickly. Of course, if you can find a couple of days on your roadmap, we can make things happen. So we'd love to hear from you and love to hear how we can help your brand do good in the world and use software to boost sales as well.
Thank you, Bob, so much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Cesar. And saying that about Ukraine, I guess I want to have a special part in this particular podcast where I will have my own message to the community, and it will be a message about Roundup for Ukraine. This is a movement that Irina Kelly, my colleague from Salesforce, and I started a few weeks back. We came with this idea after several discussions, and that's actually why we are here, why I found you Bob, you Katie, why I found ChangeUp. It's the movement. It's like the idea, I call it now the movement, where any business, wherever you are in the world, right? If you have a transaction in your day-to-day business, it means there will be a change, and you can round up this change for Ukraine. And it takes a small piece to make a change, but with millions and billions of people around the world, we can make the impact. So I wish to ask you to go to roundupforukraine.org, check all the assets that we have over there. We building with the volunteers all the different POCs. We did already for Revolut. Right now we are doing for TransferWise. We trying to reach out banks, financial institutions. We're trying to make those mock-ups how you can actually apply Roundup. As the story as I mentioned, right, in the grocery stores. That's one place where you can do this. Banking accounts. For example, Monobank, Ukrainian bank, they already have this Roundup. So for each transaction I'm doing in Ukraine, right now my money goes to one of the Ukrainian charities. The same actually did Dick's chain of restaurants in US. If you go over there and ask round up my order, they will round up your order and the change will go to the Ukrainian charity. So Roundup for Ukraine is real. It's a movement, and I wish to ask for your support. Join, help, spread the news. And moreover, if you are Commerce Cloud customer and you're thinking about Roundup for Ukraine, you have a solution already. ChangeUp is our technology partner. Thank you so much. You can also see them. I mean, I included your guys' logo on the website. So we have like, it's, you know, it's real, right? It's a movement. You are there. You can already enable the businesses. So if you are any kind of customers on Commerce Cloud, reach out either to ChangeUp or reach out to us. We can, you know, we can put you in contact with ChangeUp. And if you are watching on YouTube, below the video will be the links. If you join the community, we also created a channel called Roundup for Ukraine. So go to the unofficial community, go to the channel, ask questions. Bob, Katie are there, I'm there. We will help answering questions, onboard you. So with that, I just want to thank one more time to Peter, Bob, Katie, and Cesar for coming for this podcast today. And donations in e-commerce are real. They make impact. They have a value. It's a win-win. And let's do this. Thank you so much and see you next time.